Following are all places that you've seen in your dreams. Or at the very least, that's the premise of many videos across the internet. Compilations of imagery belonging to the genre of liminal spaces featuring thematically fitting songs in the background, with the videos in question attempting to evoke feelings of nostalgia, belonging, and familiarity. The Cambridge Dictionary defines the word liminal as something between or belonging to two different places, status, etc., providing the liminal state between waking and sleeping as an example of that. In short, liminality is essentially a state of transition, the in-between of two separate things. The internet doesn't have a set-in-stone definition for what can be classified as a liminal space or not. Everyone seems to have their own opinion on what should or shouldn't be defined as one. Some believe that liminal spaces are represented by empty rooms. Others view large grass fields as liminal. Theoretically, if we were to follow the definition of liminality, being a state of transition, we could define a hallway as a liminal place, because it is in theory a room or a place that exists solely for one person to traverse somewhere else. In the kitchen we cook, eat, and drink coffee, while in the bedroom we sleep or we relax. The hallway's purpose is simply to take us from the kitchen into the bedroom, or outside of our house entirely. It doesn't have any other specific or inherent purpose other than to act as a transitional room, and while this could be the correct definition for a liminal space, essentially a place that has no purpose other than connecting two rooms or two places together, I think the internet has agreed on the idea that liminality cannot be strictly defined. Rather, it functions as a vibe, following certain unwritten rules. I'm not going to attempt and list every single theme, object, or environment that could be classified as liminal. Rather, I'm going to give you a short example of what I mean by liminality being a vibe. Just look here for a moment and tell me if you agree. This is not a liminal space. This is a liminal space. This one is not a liminal space. This one is a liminal space. This one is not a liminal space. This one is a liminal space. If you agreed with those 6 statements, then you've probably realized that one of the most common unwritten rules in what defines liminality is the lack of people. Of course, this is not something that applies all the time, but in the vast majority of cases, you'll find that liminal spaces feature rooms or places that, despite being obviously man-made and serving human needs or human requirements, are completely devoid of life. But what I wanted to truly talk about today is something that relates to liminal spaces on a certain degree, and that's dreamcore. Or rather, the dreamcore aesthetic and what classifies something as dreamcore or not. The reason why I went on that whole tangent at the beginning of the video, attempting to define liminality, is because dreamcore is often associated with it, just as I showed you at the very beginning of the video, while at the same time attempting to create a sense of familiarity or déjà vu. The common myth surrounding this aesthetic is that we derive a sense of familiarity from it due to the fact that the places featured within dreamcore are, as the name suggests, places that we've seen in our dreams, but I think that the actual reason is something else entirely. Dreamcore is an aesthetic that visually focuses on surrealistic, dreamlike scenarios. Through the use of liminal spaces, bright colors, child-themed objects, and vague descriptions or detailing, dreamcore attempts to evoke feelings of familiarity and belonging, sometimes even comfort. But sometimes dreamcore can take a completely different approach and evoke loneliness and unease, feelings that are provoked by even further surrealistic sceneries depicting various nonsensical and distorted creatures or people, with the most often depicted one being eye creatures with wings observing the viewer and sometimes attempting to communicate. But let's take a step back for a moment. Let's get back to why dreamcore manages to evoke familiarity. A common visual element within dreamcore is represented by ranch-style houses, sometimes depicted on grassy fields and sometimes depicted from the inside. Ranch-style houses created in the US became especially popular starting in the 1940s. For many Americans, these houses evoke a sense of nostalgia as they were a common childhood environment. Even for non-Americans, these houses still create a sense of familiarity due to their neutral appearance and their frequent depiction in media. Examples of such houses in media include the cul-de-sac in Ed, Edd n Eddy, the house where E.T. was filmed, Walter White's house in Breaking Bad, The Simpsons house, and Eric and Donna's house from That 70s Show. These homes have been ingrained in our subconscious through years of exposure, making them an effective tool for triggering nostalgia. Another reason why dreamcore can trigger those senses of déjà vu is because a second highly common visual element within dreamcore are liminal spaces linked to childhood settings, such as kindergartens, toy rooms, daycares, or pools. Of course, they will feel familiar. Most of us probably, and hopefully, spent a great part of our childhood in some of those places, parts of our childhood that, despite being unable to recall accurately, as our brains were still developing the ability to understand concepts such as object permanence, we still bear perhaps fond memories of what would, funnily enough, resemble liminal spaces. Try and remember something from when you went to kindergarten. I bet that at least one image will show vividly in your memory one singular moment of playing with a specific toy or finding yourself in a specific room, and you can remember every detail about that image, but you'll probably be completely unable to remember what came before and after that moment. You only have that one particular feeling or scene ingrained in your memory, one that you won't be able to forget, and yet the rest feels foggy, surreal, the exact same way that sometimes we can feel during our dreams, like those moments when you gain a glimpse of lucidity or consciousness during a dream. You know where you are, you know what you're doing, you don't remember how you got there though, but you don't even question it. You simply are there, in the moment, in the purest way there is. The rest doesn't matter. The reason why some liminal spaces related to childhood featured in dreamcore can feel eerie or perhaps even a bit creepy is due to the same reason I talked about before. They're empty, and that's an unnatural sight. Kindergartens and playgrounds are not supposed to be empty. They're supposed to be full of life and noise and children running and playing around. And that's probably how most of us remember those places. While it is true that in fact there's actually nothing surreal or unnatural about an empty playground, I mean, obviously there is not going to be kids within one 24/7, it's still an odd sight. But dreamcore, as I mentioned before, can take actually surreal approaches, placing the viewer in impossible and far out reality scenarios, just like our dreams, where during one moment we find ourselves doing something incredibly normal and mundane, and the very next moment we find ourselves in an impossible situation that we don't even end up questioning. I will say that surrealism is an essential part of dreamcore, as it helps mimicking the way that dreams rarely follow the strict rules of reality. Common surreal imagery includes doors leading to bright blue skies, the bizarre single-eyed creatures that I've mentioned before, sentient mushrooms acting as guides through fantastical landscapes, or people whose faces are portrayed as distorted or unrecognizable. These elements work together to transport the viewer into a dreamlike environment that feels both inviting and otherworldly. Originally, dreamcore began as an extremely niche aesthetic, featured in small, unpopular Tumblr blogs. Remember Tumblr? Even that site almost feels like a dream nowadays, belonging to a far different time of the internet. Dreamcore has gained significant popularity in recent years, largely due to TikTok. The rise of similarly themed videos on the platform has given dreamcore a surge in recognition, with some creators actually basing entire accounts around this particular niche, portraying themselves in odd situations without questioning the reality surrounding them. But it's not just visual elements that aid in the recreation of nostalgic and dreamlike feelings. Sounds and music play a big role in the matter, with the dreamcore aesthetic even giving birth to its own genre of melodies, with some being created purposely for the dreamcore aesthetic and others being merely adopted into it. Dreamcore music typically features mellow, ethereal sounds with soft melodies, airy vocals, and gentle rhythms. It often incorporates lo-fi production techniques such as vinyl crackle and distorted sounds, giving it a vintage and nostalgic feel. Acoustic instruments like guitar, piano, and strings are also common, creating a warm and organic sound. The lyrics in dreamcore music often explore themes of nostalgia, childhood memories, lost love, and the passage of time. Vocals are typically soft and whispery, enhancing the dreamy and introspective mood. The overall purpose of dreamcore music is to create a calming and nostalgic atmosphere, often in contrast with the eerie imagery associated with it, with the melodies providing comfort and reassurance, making everything less eerie. Some artists whose music aligns with the dreamcore aesthetic include Jack Stauber, Pilot Red Son, Windows 96, Caro Caro Bonito, and Dreamcore. I totally recommend you listen to them, as many of their songs also align with a variety of other aesthetics. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I plan on making videos about other aesthetics in the future. If there is a specific aesthetic you'd like me to cover, leave a comment down below and I'll check it out. As always, I would like to thank this channel's members for their continued support. It's highly appreciated, and if you would like to join them, you can do so through the join button down below. With this being said, I hope you have a good night, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.